The other two keys would be the active involvement of students in their own learning. How do we do that? Where they can come back to learn what they missed the first time. Folders around the room with the targets and activities associated with the targets, or tasks that they can do connected to the targets. Demonstrate that they've done those targets so they're engaged more in their own learning. Helping each other, peer tutoring, cross-grade level tutoring, a way for kids to be involved in their own learning, right? No more, very little sit and get. More stuff like this, an opportunity for knee to knee or shoulder to shoulder, a chance for people to converse and exchange and explain to one another what they are hearing and what they are learning. I mean, involve the kids actively in their own learning. And then your feedback is critical. Not just grades, but feedback. How could you improve? Not just numbers on a paper, but how could you improve? If you really want kids to improve, that's what has to go on their papers. If you put a grade, or you put a grade and feedback, those are not as effective as just giving feedback. Kids will learn without a grade, which is your challenge, to move off of that and on to the other. Okay? If you're looking for some ideas, let me just kind of pre-test and analyze it, right? Differentiate your instruction together. Plan, modify along the way, teach, post-test, re-engage. There's your map. If you're looking for ideas about how to deal with a protocol, use a protocol to drive your direction. You have it on page 18. But I want to show you this because I think this is just really creative. When a kid gets his test paper back, you give him this form. And on the form, you have all the targets for that on that assessment. What is the work of teams? Creating the right format, the right processes by which kids will be more engaged and which you'll be more engaged. Teams don't sit around and wait for a district to give them the common assessments. Teams write their own common assessments. Then they develop processes that address the 5 keys. And then they implement those processes. This is one that a team does. I think it's fantastic. Second grade teachers on up report that has been absolutely fabulous for their kids. That comes back with the assessment. It has all the targets clearly identified. Then the question is, got it right, got it wrong, simple mistake, need more study. The kid checks the boxes according to the score on their papers. Now they have an opportunity to reflect on what they need to practice on. You have the folders around the room for each of those 5 targets. You got the kids going into groups, and this happens when the next day. Immediate response to the kids. But you're engaging them in that process of learning. And you're emphasizing that you'll learn from your mistakes. And then when they come back to take the part of the test that they did not master, which is in this case, this kid did not do well on subtract 3-digit numbers with bar. That's the part of the test he's going to retake. And when he retakes it, you tell him, I'll give you full credit for it. I'm going to go in and change your grade. Because it doesn't matter that it took you an additional time to learn it, you still learned it. That's motivating the kids. When you look for that particular key, use it. Okay? So well, I should say that to 400 people. Any questions, right? Instead, I'll say thank you for sharing your ideas with each other. Come back to your seats. We're going to wind it down with just a couple. If we're talking about teams, there's a third question that the team is wrestling with all the time. And that is based on the data that we have, when we see the kids struggle, what is our commitment to helping them close the gap? Not only in my classroom, but even beyond my classroom, when they need more intense help. And so we see teams and whole schools, because a team is a school also, we see them developing interventions during the school day. Interventions during the school day, we see it where they flood the rooms. We have 8 to 8:30 is kindergarten intervention. Well, you probably put kindergarten in the afternoon, maybe. I don't know. Whatever you know is appropriate for kindergarten. But it's a 30-minute intervention. It could be 3 days a week. It could be every day of the week. But 8 to 8:30 is intervention time for kids for more intense help. No new instruction goes on. We'll enrich other kids and we'll intensify some help for others. There are some tips to help you along the way. Okay? The first tip is this. Always be aware of mindless precedent. Those things that really are interfering with some of the ideas that this is around. One of the ones that drives me crazy, probably drives you crazy too, is one that says, we can't give kids additional chances. Because in the real world, you don't get additional chances, and it's time to teach these kids the real world. Kindergarten starts in kindergarten. That's the real world of that is you're going to help them learn. Fifth grade is fifth grade. The real world of that is you want to help them learn the standards by which you wanted them to know and be able to perform. So that's what you're looking for. Invite that discussion, inquire and probe. See clarity. When someone says to you, that's not real, or we won't be able to tell who the top kids are now because we're giving kids additional opportunities to take a test, you know your answer, right? Your answer is, we're supposed to be getting a lot of kids to perform at a high level. That's our job. That's what we're trying to do. And if it means we've got to change our practices and disenthrall ourselves to some beliefs that really aren't in keeping with the culture we've designed, then disenthrall yourself to that. Be aware of those who want to appeal to mindless precedent. It says, but we've always done it this way. We've always been able to sort and select kids. And now we won't be able to because kids get additional opportunities. Say hallelujah to that, please. Kids, oh, I didn't really mean to, but I like it. Okay, that's what you're about, all right? How about tip number 2? Oh, by the way, mindless precedent, again, I mentioned that, now you have it. Mindless precedent that says we can't motivate kids, yes, you can. Try those strategies that are in your handout there that I mentioned earlier. If you really wanted to say, how can we engage kids at a higher level, get into Marzano's work of best practices. I know Greg has done some fantastic work on this. I imagine a lot of you have participated in that. Come back to it, if you haven't come back to it in a while, and ask yourself, how good are we at classroom instruction that work kind of strategies? Do we need to revisit those kinds of things? Right? Because sometimes we get caught up in the, here's the stuff, and here's what we've got to do, and we forget the real application of what works in the classroom. Tip number 2, your system of intervention should be fluid. Do not lock kids into groups. If you lock a kid into a group and they never get out of that group, you're not doing something right in your intervention. Because your intervention should be closing their gap. And every 2, maybe 3 weeks, you ought to be asking yourself, should we be trying something different with this kid? If you haven't been able to close their gaps in 2 to 3 weeks, if you're very specific with the targets that you're after. So looking deeply into that so that it becomes more fluid. Right? Tip 3, the system of intervention works most effectively when they are supporting teams rather than individual teachers. And I don't want to step on anyone's toes on this. I just want to be clear about what we mean in that tip. We cannot have ineffective practices in our classes, so that's why we work collaboratively to begin with and share instructional ideas and put them into practice with one another. It doesn't work well for us to have a system of intervention and one teacher has a whole bunch of kids in there because they're not following best instructional practices. So please don't allow your intervention to supplement what should be effective teaching. I don't think that would happen here, but every now and then I run across that, and the whole answer to this person's ineffectiveness is, don't worry about it, we'll put our kids in interventions. It's not fair to the kids, it's not fair to the other people also. Address ineffective teaching through collaborative efforts, right? That's the best way to do it. Tip 4, make sure you have a common understanding of what it really means to have an intervention for kids. If you have a common understanding, then you'll embrace the idea that some kids need more help, and you'll give them that more help, both in your classroom, as a team, and as a school. And the final tip is realize that no support system will ever compensate for ineffective teaching. That's why this model requires principals and school leaders and school teams and teachers to really say, how can we get better at our craft, at the art and science of teaching? The bottom line is, and you can map these things out, the bottom line is figuring out where we're going to go from here. We have very limited time in this short day and to do an overview of what this is all about. I hope the point has been made in this way. You're developing a culture around a real central belief system that says we make a difference and we'll make that difference collaboratively. We won't leave it to chance. This is about school-wide improvement. And all of us are a part of that effort. And that while you're a part of that building of the culture, you're also doing some very important work, all of which centers around the differences for kids. If you really think about how the schools change, they change by looking at their curriculum, their assessment, and their instruction. And they start with them in that order: curriculum, then assessment, as instruction follows as we discuss assessment. Those create the learning environment in your school, the true learning environment in your school. So my question, and the final essential one that we have in our task today is, so where are we now and where will we go from here? And I've given you a couple of ideas. I can't read that cartoon, but it says, I hope you're going to do something, because this kid came home and he says, the teacher said I was trying today, very trying today. Okay? And I don't hide the fact that even with a really wonderful school like Campbell, we had our trying days, right? And it became our effort to keep trying, even when we had those moments and those stumbling blocks. Nothing ever went so smoothly that we just said, we are perfect at this. Matter of fact, in the book Influencers, they tell you that really effective organizations believe that you have to have a system of recovery, because you will find bumps in the road. You'll find them as teams. You'll find them in the work. You'll find them when something new is added or handed to you, like new standards. Just be a system of recovery, rather than like some groups are. They see that bump and they park, and they never move forward. So I challenge you, and I challenge principals to think about, what are your next steps? First of all, your next step would be to celebrate. Celebrate who you are. I don't know how you do that in here. I'm going to ask the principals to come up and do it with me, though, very, very quickly. I need all the principals to come up. Come on, give your principal a hand. Bring them up here. All the principals come up. Listen to this celebration. Look at that. Oh, my God. Yeah, good. And let's do this half. This half, you guys stay with your schools over on this side, and you guys stay with your schools over on this side, all right? What a marvelous looking group. Marvelous. Would you tell them they look marvelous?
and assistant principal.
Yeah, assistant principals. I'm sorry, you got to be up here too. Assistant principals, come on up. There we go. Wonderful. Okay, you guys got to be close together so you're kind of held together, because I don't want you too separated out there. All right. Now, you guys have a lot of celebration, don't you? A lot of things to celebrate in your schools. Yes. Oh, we need some cheerleaders up here. Okay, they have a lot to celebrate. Here's what I'd like you to do. This side of the room, I want you to lead this group in a celebration. All right? And all they have to do is sing with you. Celebrate good times. Come on. Can you lead it in that? Oh, yeah. You know what? Let's change the words. Let's do it this way. Educate someone. Come on. Can you do that? Sure. Do they need to practice one time? All right, you guys are going to help. You're going to do an assessment and give them constructive feedback. All right, just this group right here, really, really loud, from here, all right? And it doesn't have to be on key. It has to be loud. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go.
Educate someone. Come on.
Did you see that? Wow, wonderful. Do they need to practice again? You got to practice again. Here we go. Ready? Oh, yeah. Oh. See, they're even doing peer helping. I love peer coaching. This is wonderful. Kevin's going to start. You guys need to put a plan together and rehearse it. Okay, you guys put together rehearse real quick. You guys are going to do this. Okay, here we go. All right. Now the real challenge is, will you, they're up here taking a risk, aren't they? They're out in front of you guys and they're taking a risk. Are you going to take a risk in this effort? A risk to improve for the sake of kids, right? If not now, when? If not now, when? Stand up for me. Stand up for me. If not now, when? We're going to take a risk on this journey this year, right? We're going to take a huge risk to work together in collaboration, not just to sing a song, but to really